Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, which bills in the General Assembly survived crossover day between the Senate and the House of Delegates? Hurrah, hurrah! County executive releases the new Montgomery County budget with no new taxes, at least for this year, and failing upward. Monifa McKnight resigns and receives a golden parachute. Our insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by Stacey Sauter, chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, and civic activist Cary Lamari. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. The General Assembly crossover day, which occurred this past Monday, is always fraught with anticipation. Of the many hundreds of bills introduced in the House of Delegates and the Senate, which ones have a chance of actually passing and becoming into law? Unsurprisingly, Governor Wes Moore's priority bill, addressing affordable housing and other tenant right issues, made the cut. Cary, House Bill 693, is named the Renters' Rights and Stabilization Act of 2024, and provides tenants residing in rental properties the right of first refusal when the landlord seeks to sell the property as a means of creating and opening up affordable housing opportunities. Also addressed in the bill are other tenants' rights issues. How exactly is this bill going to increase affordable housing?
Well, I don't think it does. In my opinion, the right of first refusal is a solution looking for a problem. I own rental properties, and to be quite honest with you, if I were to sell a piece of property and my tenant says I'd like to buy it, certainly I'm going to give them first right. I mean, think about it; it's a no-brainer. I don't have to hire a realtor, 6% commission, a quicker sale. There's no carrying costs involved. It doesn't make sense, and I'm not a fan of rent stabilization or rent control, because I think that I know that it just hampers the industry. It tells developers not to build affordable, apartment buildings in the area. It has in Tacoma Park. New York is a perfect example. So I don't know. I don't think our legislative body is just heading down the wrong road, in my opinion.
Stacey, I didn't have a specific question for you about this bill, but I would like to get your impression of it as well. As a realtor, you're intimately familiar with the housing market, and what does this do to the housing stock?
Well, we have empirical data that it's a failure down in Washington, D.C. with the TOPA laws. And you know what a labyrinth that is, or was. They've been trying to undo portions of that, but it made it a miserable experience for sellers trying to get tenants out of there who knew how to game the system, because they gave them X amount of time to get back to them with a decision. And then the tenant could say, well, I want to buy it. And then they had to go through the process of trying to qualify for it. Even though they couldn't qualify for it, they could hold that property up for years. So it doesn't do the market any good in terms of availability of stock, of inventory. And it generated lawsuits. It was a mess. And Maryland, the last thing Maryland needs to do, especially with all their climate change initiatives and developers skipping the area, is to add another layer of trouble for homeowners and developers that are renting out to the public.
Well, we got to move on to our next topic, but the bill also has some technical issues that never got worked out in testimony. I know my group, the Maryland Land Title Association, submitted testimony because there were some technical issues that were a problem. But I'm sure it's going to be passed because it's the governor's bill. I want to pivot right now, Stacey, to the juvenile crime bills that are being introduced by both the House and the Senate because of the reaction to the increase in juvenile crime throughout the state.
Casey, in 2022, the legislature passed juvenile crime bills, and then in 2023, it did not stop a 14-year-old in Baltimore for participating in a mass shooting that killed 2 people and injured 28. And then this past November, we had a 12 and a 14-year-old arrested for assaulting, robbing, and trying to steal a woman's car. The latter 2 were simply returned home after they were arrested. So from a political perspective, if you're a lawmaker, you're all rah-rah for public safety. Otherwise, good luck getting elected again. The problem is these latest bills are just window dressing to the juvenile crime bills. They extend probationary periods while providing the children, and keep that in mind, these are kids, with more rehabilitative resources. One sad thing is that it includes a list of crimes that even 10-year-olds, okay, 10-year-olds, think about that, can be charged with. You're talking about a 4th or 5th grade child. You know, you want to know what would impress me is if they had a lousy parenting bill. You know, I mean, where in the hell are the parents and the guardians of these children? You know, and keep in mind what just happened in Michigan recently with that precedent-setting case resulting in convictions of involuntary manslaughter for the Crumbleys, Jennifer and Jason Crumbly, whose son Ethan killed 4 of his high school classmates in a mass shooting. I believe those convictions should send a chilling message to all parents about their level of responsibility for their children. It's, you know, it's high time in Maryland for legislators to realize that the fate of the world rests on good parenting, which could ultimately mean punishing parents for their the egregious failures of their children.
Well, it's certainly an interesting reaction to juvenile crime, and certainly an issue that the public is very concerned about. We're going to pivot once again back to my favorite topics in Maryland, which is taxes, taxes, taxes. And Cary, both the House and the Senate passed bills to increase some tolls and impose a fee on electric vehicle tolls. And the tolls haven't been, you know, increased since Governor Hogan rolled back the tolls back in 2016, which was a very popular move. Is this just a demonstration of how desperate the state is for housing? I mean, for traffic and road improvement revenue?
You know, it's just the beginning. We're entering into this new era of the electrical vehicles. And we're talking about infrastructure. We got to pay for the infrastructure. And the more electric vehicles on the road, the less money goes to pay for the roads. The reality is there are other issues involved that will increase the cost of electric vehicles, like electrical generation in years to come. And we're going to have to find ways to pay for that. So we're talking about tolls. We need to get money for electrical generation.
So, you know, Stacey, in that bill, there's an interesting change in the law. There is a vehicle trade-in exemption. When you trade in your car, you're not taxed because you're trading in your car as if you're making a sale. But the proposal in this law is that that exemption is only going to apply if you trade in for an electric vehicle.
You see, this is one of the most short-sighted policies, I think, in general, you know, this transition to EVs. And you've heard me talk before on your program about incrementalism, and that the Democrats want to do everything big. They want it now. And so there's short-sightedness in terms of what Cary was just talking about. And that is that the infrastructure, like, how are you going to pay for this? Oh, they didn't think about that when they started jamming this down our throats, that we have to buy EVs, and these trade-in policies that are sort of after the fact, that they're trying to figure out how to make these things work. It's really
you know, I think the real point here is the compulsion to make people buy electric vehicles. I mean, you know, a lot of people can't afford an electric vehicle, and to remove the exemption when they sell a used car to force them to buy an electric vehicle, I think is just totally misguided. But I want to go to Cary. Cary, I know you're capable of answering this question. I don't think I prepped you on this. They're making a change in the combined form, which is the form that businesses have to file each year with Maryland, that would separately tax subsidiaries at the subsidiary level, instead of allowing the taxes to be rolled into the parent company for taxation purposes. Is this going to discourage companies from wanting to incorporate in the state of Maryland?
Not sure, quite honestly. I don't think I am prepared to answer that question. Not
I'm
reasonably.
sorry.
My apologies. You're going to have to help
Well,
out.
that's all right. I thought of that, how outrageous that requirement was when I was doing my show prep this morning and thinking, once again, we're sending a anti-business message out to the community when we are changing these, what seems like a minor technical change. We're sending out a message to the community that maybe this is not a great place to do business. We're running out of time. We got to go on to our next topic. We're going to have to save all of the other pieces of legislation that have gone that emerged during the crossover period for next week. Now we're going to talk about Montgomery County and its budget. The Montgomery County budget increased to $7.1 billion after major increases in real estate taxes last year. And there will not be an increase in taxes because, lo and behold, they have a surplus from last year. And Cary, underneath the facade of happy days are here again, the county has some significant troubling issues. First, the county's middle-class tax base is eroding, while the percentage of low-income residents is the fastest growing population of the county. So how are we going to face these challenges?
We have contradictions. I mean, they suggest that Thrive is going to solve our affordable housing situation through upzoning. When upzoning across the country has proved, and studies have shown, whether it's the Brookings Institute or New York study on affordable housing, that by building these multiplex housing, you're increasing the cost of the housing, in the local area. Plus, in Montgomery County, and when we looked at our tax bill last year, we said that we told the state, hey, your assessments are going up. You don't need to increase taxes. No other jurisdiction in the Washington region increased taxes. We did 4.7%. We ended up with a 15% surplus. We ended up with more money to pay for more programs that were not budgeted. I don't know. I think we're just not doing a good job.
Stacey, do you want to have a comment on that?
I'd like to talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the number of illegal immigrants that migrate to this area and that we have to pay for services for them. And they require, because for the most part, they're low income, that it requires broadening the housing base at that level. We just don't have enough land to accommodate the number of people that are moving into this area. And it has an impact across the board. So, we're providing services on all different levels. The children are being educated, so it's costing the county more money. And it's very, very hard for them to predict how many people they have to absorb on an annual basis. And they're not transparent about it. We do not know what those numbers are. But they have to educate those children. Those children should be educated. They're entitled to an education, but it's costing the county money. So surplus this year, guess what? Next year, poof, it could be gone.
Well, I want to, Cary, we're going to pivot to that and talk about affordable housing. The county is throwing $65 million to try to solve the problem. Is that the solution?
Well, money always helps, but we have to have other factors. Like I said, multiplex housing, creates, look, when you buy a piece of property, you buy the property and you buy a bundle of rights. When you upzone the property, you're making that property more valuable, right? There's another thing called the naturally occurring affordable housing in Montgomery County. And that's gone down. We've lost about 11,000 affordable housing units since 2005, with rent control, with the upzoning. We're going to be in real trouble when it comes to creating affordable housing and retaining it. Not to forget that the Council of Governments has guesstimated that 200,000 people are going to be coming to Montgomery County by 2030, and 75% of those people are going to be in need of affordable housing. Now, how do we do that? I mean, we certainly can't do it by promoting the redevelopment of naturally occurring affordable housing into more expensive multiplex housing. Where are these people going to live? They're not going to be able to live in Montgomery County. I
Well,
think
we've got some very serious issues because we're also seeing a moving out of the middle class, or squeezing out of the middle class in Montgomery County. But I want to talk about another challenge facing the county, and that's, Stacey, you touched on that a minute ago, is public safety. I mean, in the last week, we've seen a number of articles about the lack of police officers being retained and the inability of the county to replace them. What's happening in our public safety sector?
These are risks that are knowable in advance and discoverable along the way. That you reduce the police force, and what happens? You get an uptick in crime. And now you need to hire more police, but they're burned out by Montgomery County policy and politicians. They don't want to work here. If they want to stay in the field, they're migrating to other jurisdictions where they're treated with more respect and they get better pay. And so it's no surprise that we have this growing problem here. And again, I'm going to tap into that issue of the illegal immigration, because we have a huge uptick in the number of gangs and the gang activity that's going on in Montgomery County. It is a pervasive and a persistent problem. I don't know any solution other than throwing more money at it to try to get more police officers on staff.
All right, I'll give you the last word on this, Cary.
Well, I've said it numerous times. In Montgomery County, our goal is to have one police officer for every 1,000 residents of the county. In other jurisdictions across the country our size, it's 2.4 to 2.8 police per 1,000 residents. And that depends on whether it's urban or suburban. In the District of Columbia, which is a third our size, with 650,000 people to our million, they have 3,500 police. And to offset this, we have lost 14% of our police force in the past couple of years because of attrition, and more to go. These gimmicks, $20,000 signing bonuses, you know what? The District of Columbia is giving $25,000 signing bonuses. Stacey's right. The fact of the matter is, we are showing disrespect to our police. We are blaming, our elected officials are blaming the police for everything under the sun when they are the culpable party in this issue.
Well, it's certainly a pervasive problem, and one that we're going to have to live with. And I agree with both of you that just throwing additional money as a signing bonus doesn't do anything with retention. And those are the working conditions that the police are operating under. And the council has to address that. When we come back from this short break, failing upward, Monifa McKnight resigns and receives a golden parachute. How lucky. Stay tuned.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things,
but they're all pure love.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Welcome back. A fair summation of Monifa McKnight's tenure as superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools could be described as troubled. Stacey, details on Mrs. McKnight's separation agreement was released and revealed that the package totaled almost $1.3 million. What do you think?
Casey, you might recall last fall when I appeared on your show, I stated a belief that McKnight would not resign due to what was probably or what were probably better terms in her contract if she were forced out, and BINGO, she left an understaffed, overburdened school system in her wake. And I think the settlement is an outrageous sum of money to reward someone whose performance constitutes misfeasance at best and malpractice at worst.
Cary, what are your thoughts?
Only in Montgomery County, Casey. Only in Montgomery County. $1.3 million. I mean, what did she do? Look, we had the Biederman fiasco. We've had rapes in our schools, children that have been, it's just terrible. That's what I have to say.
I mean, as an attorney that negotiates settlement agreements, usually the price point that is reached is one where it's cheaper to pay than to litigate. And I'm assuming that that's the occurrence here. And
sometimes principle's worth something too.
Yeah, it's worth something. Anyway, thanks for your thoughts. Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back from this next break.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
And welcome back. Now with parting shots, I'm going to take the opportunity to give the first parting shot. Since 1889, the motto of the United States Military Academy at West Point was duty, honor, and country. It was incorporated into the Academy's mission statement as Army values. Last week, a new mission statement was released and substituted in its place as Army values was loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. These changes have called into question whether West Point has gone woke and lost sight of the mission, while others say it's much ado about nothing. Time's going to tell whether these changes undermine the mission of West Point, as duty and honor remains in the new statement of the Army values. But I'm troubled that country was omitted. Love of country is essential when asking young men and women to give their lives to a cause. If country is no longer the cause, then what are they fighting for? What were the founding fathers fighting for in 1776? I believe our country, the United States of America, remains the last beacon of hope of the world. I fervently believe in American exceptionalism and that economic freedom is represented by free market capitalism and is at its core a human right. I'm dispirited that the new definition of Army values does not include the inclusion of patriotism. Now with their parting shots, Stacey Sauter.
Casey, thank you so much for that. I could not agree with you more, every single word of it. And I think that your sentiments are what we share in the Republican Party and what we are out there fighting for. And that is to protect this country against tyranny. And the kind of tyranny that we're seeing with the DEI and you shall speak this or you shall not speak that, it's really troublesome. I want to let everybody know we have a convention coming up on April 20th at the Gaithersburg, the Doubletree Hilton in Gaithersburg. Sebastian Gorka is one of our guest speakers. Our luncheon speaker is former ICE Director Tom Homan. We've got a Congressional 6 candidate forum going on, and we also have a local issues forum that's happening. It's going to be pretty exciting. $20 to get in the door. It's a good deal.
Thank you, Stacey. Cary Lamari, you get a parting shot.
Here, here, from a Democrat on your parting shot.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we really need to start paying attention. Our counties, our county, our state, and our governor are starting to be creative in the way of dealing with the housing issues in Montgomery County. And in my opinion, they're not doing it the right way. That's my opinion. Upzoning creates more problems than it serves. In New York, 10-year study, it changes the demographics, it gets more expensive, creates more expensive housing. We lose, the lower income population. Chicago, the properties weren't even selling after a 5-year study. It just goes on and on. The fact of the matter is, they're starting to talk about it. They brought it up again. They're holding meetings on the attainable housing proposal, the upzoning proposal. Stay involved. Not to mention, you've got the David Moon bill, who wants to take the rights away from homeowners associations. Housing is a big issue. We need to start focusing on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cary, and thank you, Stacey, for appearing this week, and thank you, audience, for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.